Because I'm kind of expecting this episode to actually go a little bit quicker than our previous ones.
I was thinking the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
This shit's going so long because you know what? It's like Rossi's career up in here. We're gonna have like a couple lulls, then we're gonna come back to how awesome Rossi was. It's gonna be sweet.
Well, we'll just have
The greatest
to see.
line of all time is not even Jesus managed 2 comebacks.
Fucking.
Welcome. It's the actual episode 7 of the CRC Podcast, presented by BayAreaWritersForum.com. I want to first and foremost apologize because I don't know why I've been bad at naming the episodes and numbering them the last few times. So this is clearly episode number 7, and the previous one, episode number 6. We want to kind of say thank you again to Budman for joining us. We did lose him. For the record, it was because for some reason we couldn't get Budman to actually join in the conference through the program that we use. He actually had to phone in for that episode, and at some point we just lost him. But it was great to still have him. Also great to have Berto Woolridge, whole shot. Also want to thank him for sticking with us throughout the episode and giving us a lot of useful sound bites.
Plus, I got 2 continuing credits for my economy class listening to Berto.
But it is episode 7, and we are back to current road racing talk. And boy, do we have a lot of road racing talk. We had
episode 46.
Okay, fine. Episode 40, unofficially episode 46 for Kevin. But
all right,
we are also recapping Round 2 of World Superbikes in Thailand, and of course Round 1 of MotoGP in Qatar for 2015. However, before we get cracking with this party, we just kind of want to pay our respects for the fact that we lost Dane Westby, who is an American road racer in the AMA or Moto America Series, in a street motorcycle crash. I actually just read that he was riding a Honda Hawk, supposedly, according to one report that I saw, which kind of hit a little bit close to him because that's pretty much my daily workhorse too. But obviously a very sad loss to the American road racing scene and just road racing in general. So our deepest condolences to his family, friends, and the rest of the road racing community. But from that, let's move on to actual road racing talk. I know my co-hosts just cannot wait to get to MotoGP, but we got to do business first. And first things first is Round 2 of World Superbikes 2 weekends ago. That was held in Thailand for the first time.
Yeah,
new Rob, you watched it too, right?
Yeah. I mean, I liked the track. Like I kind of liked how. Like it seemed like Tilke only went Tilke on like half of it, with the long straights, and he actually.
Wait, what does that mean, Tilke?
That's the designer. All his tracks are the same crappy layout.
Name another circuit that I might know that he did.
China.
What?
Yeah. China.
That's a long time ago, bro.
That's a long time. He had his hands in Coda, right?
Yeah, he did Coda too.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
He's like the #1 track designer right now in terms of
the go-to guy for circuit designing.
Right.
Okay.
He always because Formula One makes more money. He always has a really long straight with a really slow corner at the end of it. And in the Formula One cars, they mash on the brakes and stop from 300 kilometers an hour down to like 60 in like 50 feet. And it makes for a good passing zone because they got the DRS and all that other stuff. So it's great, but we all know that the MotoGP tracks that are awesome are nothing like that, right? Phillip Island, Brno, like those tracks they don't have massive braking zones. They have fast flowing corners. And it's crazy because the Formula One drivers love the fast-flowing corners too, but they don't get them on the modern tracks. So, whatever. There's your explanation of Tilkeing a Tilke track.
Right.
Good info. But as far as actual racing, it was a Jonathan Rayo weekend with him bagging a double win for both races of that round. This is just something that occurred to me, and I don't know if you guys would agree with me, but you know what? 2 rounds into World Superbike in 2015, 4 races, he's got 3 wins and obviously 4 podiums because he hasn't been on the podium yet. And you know what? I just can't help but think it's actually reminiscent of Casey Stoner leaving Ducati and then going to Honda. Like, just the kind of domination that Ray is showing right now on that Kawasaki and the confidence that he's got to be able to do what he wants to do on that bike and actually, getting the results that he's trying to get. I'm reminded of Casey Stoner in 2011 when he switched to a Repsol Honda from factory Ducati.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of when Corser, his first season with the Suzuki, with GSXR, with Corona, where he just came out of the gate just blowing the doors off everyone. And ended up, sorry, my cat is straight growling. That season where he just dominated, it was kind of that perfect synergy of the bike and the rider, and they were expecting a win, but not the kind of domination that Johnny's doing right now. It reminds me of that same season. I think that was 2005.
Well, I mean, we've long speculated, and pretty much everyone in the paddock has agreed that Ray is a good rider and that Honda was holding him back. And Dennis, it's kind of interesting that you bring up Stoner because the same thing definitely can be said of him. A lot of people think that Stoner would have more championships if it wasn't for Ducati, even though he got the first one with them.
Right.
But at the same time, we know that their development cycle was shit, and they didn't actually improve the bike as they needed to. So yeah, that's a good comparison.
You think about it, both Stoner and Rayo were like the only 2 people at the time, respectively, that could ride either the Ducati or the Honda, and if they weren't winning on it or getting good results, they were crashing. Like, they were having to push that, and then they jump off to a bike that is, proven, and they're not having to exert so much, and just the results just keep coming. So, as far as the most recent kind of turn of events, Stoner going to Honda is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Ray now on the Kawasaki.
Yeah,
that's actually not a bad analogy, because Ginto Lee, he's gone to the same bike that Ray was on as the champion.
Oh, yeah.
And not that he was ever a guy that, won races left and right, but he's got no podiums, and he's not really that close on a bike that Ray won a bunch of races on last year.
So are you comparing Ginto to Rossi? Is that what you're doing, moving to Ducati?
Let's not get crazy now, but you know what I'm saying? Just go into a bike that was winning races, though not championships, and maybe it's more like Hayden going to Ducati.
Yeah, I mean, I knew for a fact that Ginter's. I don't expect Ginter's to win a single race this year.
No, neither do I.
Right. I can't think of any other Honda rider that ever won on that Pata Honda.
What are you talking about? James Toseland won the title, bro.
I mean, at the time of Raya, since Raya came onto that bike, nobody's ever really beat him as far as results on that bike.
Was that the current Honda?
No, that was the first generation 1,000 but he didn't even have traction control in that thing.
Well, but no one did, right?
No, the Ducati had full traction control.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah, because I mean, after Toseland wrote it, Checo wrote it, right? When it was still who was the sponsor that they had when the bikes were green and white?
That was Hansbury, the TV maker.
That's right. And Checo didn't do anything on the bike when it was.
He won a couple races. He won at Miller.
Oh, really?
He did? Oh, yeah. I remember now.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, but obviously he didn't win the ship until he moved over to the Ducati, and that worked out quite well for him until his retirement accident.
Right. Bringing it back to the round of World Superbike in Thailand, it was actually very reminiscent of round 1 in Phillip Island because, again, Leon Haslam but placed second in both races. So he's still trailing Jonathan Rea in the championship, but I think Rea has about a 15-point lead now. Race 1 saw Tom Sykes in the third podium, whereas in race 2, Alex Lowe's. What's that?
10 points.
Oh, 10 points. Race 2, Alex Lowe's rounded out the podium for his very first podium in World Superbikes for 2015. But the other big story of that weekend that just, I mean, I was just, before the MotoGP round in Qatar, was like, I just kind of, my feel-good story as far as racing for the season was in World Supersport, where in the very first race in that new Thailand circuit, World Superbike or World Supersport not only had their very first, well, actually that's what I'm trying to get at, is they had their very first Thailand winner in their very first race in the Thailand circuit, which is Ratafak Willerud bagging his first win in World Supersport. I mean, how crazy is that you get to do that? You put that record as far as being the first Thai winner in your home circuit, and then even better, your younger brother rounds out the top 5 in the same race. I mean, that just was like the feel-good story of that race for me.
Yeah, the Supersport race like made the whole weekend like palatable and still awesome. Like the two Superbike races were snoozers. Like they're other than like the occasional crash and like someone unexpectedly going down, like there was nothing good going on. But like I always watch the Superbike race, the first one first, and then the Supersport race, and then the second Superbike race. And I was like super amped up for the Supersport. Like at the end of the Supersport race, like I almost shed a tear for that guy, man. That was awesome. And then I fell asleep for the second Superbike race after that. It was just like God, like I was going and like ready for it. And then second race was more Johnny Ray destroying everyone.
Right. You know, Willerot winning and having that kind of fairy tale weekend is so perfect, too, because the entire reason of going to Thailand and trying to sort of re-expand in the Asian market, Southeast Asia, and that is to get people to get into the sport in the hopes that they start buying bikes. Right. You know, that's kind of why the manufacturers are into it and buying bikes, getting into it, following the sport. So it kind of reminiscent of Nicky Hayden winning that first race, returning to Laguna Seca for United States and MotoGP, and that just put, even though that was kind of a boring race at the time, just put so many more people on interest that home guy was winning and all that stuff.
Yeah, and Thailand. And the best part they sell a bunch of scooters. Like I bet you after that race they're going to sell a bunch of Supersport bikes.
Right.
Thailand.
So yeah, the best part about it is that win is like there's no asterisk. It was fair game, dry, and the thing is that, with the exception of Jules Cluzel, who was leading the race for the most part, and then until he had a mechanic on his MV Agusta, I mean, Willerot, I believe, lined up in the grid in 7th, but otherwise it was all just like pure talent and effort that he got through the front and then stayed there and then kept building the lead. So it's not like a rain race or a fluke or anything. It was a straight up win for him.
Yeah, he was battling in like the top 3 like the whole race, and he was only gifted that one spot. Like it was pretty freaking awesome. It just that doesn't happen frequently in racing, right? Like where it all comes together.
No, so I'm saying the last time anything like that I can remember happened was actually in MotoGP, or rather Moto2. I think in 2012 in Malaysia when it was like really inclemental weather, but there was a wild card, Shahirin or something. I think he's got a full-time right now, but at the time he was only a wild card entry, and I believe he placed 2nd in that race. But it was inclemental weather. The race was red flagged.
It was it's Sepang. It was in Moto3. And
no, it was Moto2.
Really?
Well, there was a Moto3. There was a Moto3 where also I think a Malaysian rider, I think, was pole position but didn't actually win the race. But he probably did podium. I don't remember.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember who the Moto3 rider was.
Me neither. Anyway. But listen, we're already talking about MotoGP, MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3. So let's just get to the meat of this episode. Kevin, you've got 2 minutes. Try and sum up that MotoGP race. Go.
All Italians, all the time. That's all I have to say.
No, you have 2 minutes. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Come on.
Okay, you want to sum up the race? Just legitimately the best race in years. I mean, just a race that we've been yearning for a while. The old hat, the guy who's stuck with Ducati through thick and thin to get back up, and then, that's two people, not the same guy. And then the young gun Iannone that everyone was waiting for to finally get his podium and show that true speed after an injury-plagued, rookie year. It was just amazing that, the Ducati had not. I mean, I also think Ducati more than Rossi, simply because I read an amazing stat that Ducati, the GP15 had never done more than 15 laps in a row before that race.
Yep.
So Dovizioso was going toe-to-toe with Rossi, on a dialed-in ass Yamaha, and they got this brand new bike that's never done more than 15 or 16 laps. He's in the complete unknown, and I thought he was going to win. I thought for sure he was going to drag him to the line with that monster motor that he had, but Rossi's Rossi.
Rossi did pull a Rossi. I said this on the forum that Rossi, he essentially was practicing every time through that final corner. Like, he was pushing the front and running a little wide and getting on the gas late, or he'd get on the gas a little too hard, and the rear tire would spin and pump, but not on the final lap.
Nope.
Right when it counted. And actually someone else noticed as well, and I've since watched it again, that Dovi, he did try too hard on the final corner. He got on the gas a little too early, and the rear tire spun just a little bit, and that was probably that, and Rossi getting it perfect was just enough for the M1 to not get dragged to the line by the GP15. The
idea that he just came from so far back, hunted those guys down, and then just did it. I kept thinking, oh shit, he's in line for a podium, and then nope, there was the win.
Yeah,
it's 2015, and Rossi's leading the title.
It was nuts. Like people don't do that frequently anymore, right? He came from 10th. He qualified 7th, right? And he fell back to 10th on the first lap, and he had to actually come through the pack. And it's not like he passed, it's not like after 3 laps he was in 4th place. It took him a while to get up there, and then he took a while to get past Iannone. It took a while to get past Jorge, and then he battled out with Dovi for quite a few laps. It was a hard charging race that he had to work the entire time. That was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was crazy. I even said it on the thing. It was just the greatest race of my life. I mean, it was literally all 3 guys that I want to win. I'm like, I don't want anyone to win at this point. How could I not want Rossi to win, but how could I not want Dovizioso to get that win? Ducati, a straight-up drive. By the way, he's going to win in Texas. I'm telling you right now. He's going to win that race.
I kind of agree with you. Wait, what was our bet, by the way? Was our bet Dovi or Iannone winning first?
I said it would be Dovi, and you said Iannone.
Are you sure?
No, but I'm going with that.
What episode? That was episode 3. We can go back and listen to it. I think it's the other way around.
But everyone can go back and listen to it by clicking on brodogp.com.
It does. Don't send them there yet. It's not done yet. Whatever. Should we tell people about that now?
I don't care. Dennis can decide to edit that or not. Yeah. I'm not trying to be held down when we're talking about Rossi.
Well, so Rossi came back from 10th, and that was probably one of the best things that we've seen on track ever.
And what was amazing about it too was that Marquez had his mistake and got all the way back up, but once he kind of settled into his spot, he didn't make a lot of inroads. But Rossi, the 5 fastest laps of that race were Rossi. He closed the gap on those guys, and then methodically, systematically picked each one off, and then when he couldn't shake that one guy, used that crafty veteranness to beat him to the line.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he posted his 3rd fastest lap time on the final lap. So he definitely saved some of his energy. He saved some of the tires. He made sure that when he got up to the front, he wasn't using the whole bike. Whereas Marquez did the exact opposite. He had to ride so hard to get, he might not have had to, but he did, right? He did ride so hard to get through the pack that by the time he got to Pedrosa, he had roasted the tires. They were already too hot. They didn't have enough grip. And I guess I saw in an interview that he trying to catch everyone after Pedrosa, he almost crashed 4 or 5 times.
Right, and he ripped Batista's brakes off.
Yeah, that was bullshit. I still am hoping that we see a penalty point by Koda.
Yeah, he needs to get one or two at least for sure. It's the second time the guy has passed someone hard enough that he's pulled their brake lines off.
Yeah, and penalty points now are not like for the season; they're now the calendar year. So he should still have a couple from last year or whatever.
Right. And the entire point is to not punish an incident, but punish a trend. So I hate how everyone starts turning into, well, it's a racing incident or blah, 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 blah. Well, the entire point of the Marquez Memorial penalty system is to punish a trend. Maybe it wasn't that erroneous of a pass, but when you have a whole bunch of erroneous passes, it's not a mistake, it's not an accident, it's the way you ride.
Yeah, and I mean
it's a habit. Yeah,
and there's
exactly.
There's no reason whatsoever to pass Bautista that way on an Aprilia.
No,
like if he didn't get him that corner, he would have gotten him the next corner. Like, and you don't need to push the guy out of the way because he's on the slowest bike on the grid. Like,
right.
It was silly.
But, all right. Well, you know what? Let's kind of bring it back to like my personal favorite of that whole race as far as MotoGP is concerned. It was just so good to see that much red up front throughout the whole race and on the podiums. And I'm so happy, not just for Dovizioso and Iannone, but for Ducati. I mean, it's just, and not to take anything away from Rossi, that was amazing, but I just like a huge breath or sigh of relief from me to see Ducati doing that good this early on with that bike.
Well, I mean, I called it that they'd win, right, on the GP15. Like the second that.
Yeah, you said they're going to get a win this year, and I totally believe you.
And Dovi put that bike on the inside of the curb because he didn't realize how fast it would turn. Like the first time he rode it, like that was exactly what they were asking for, and it's just translated into having a bike that is normal. Like that's what Dovi's been saying, is the bike is normal. He's not saying...
Right, like they have a bike, Rossi said the same thing that Stoner said, that they'd have two separate bikes that were, their A bike and their B bike would respond completely differently to setup changes. And you'd get a new bike with, the same frame model, just, a new version for you, and it would respond completely different. Burgess would talk about how, you make these adjustments and... when they went, that it wouldn't do what you're supposed to do when you make those adjustments. Remember, Rossi said it was nice to be back at Yamaha because when you clicked out the rebound, it did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, because all the other bikes, they respond in the same way when you change something.
And now they got this guy who got them a bike they could handle, and they still have a monster motor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The monster motor was freaking amazing the whole race. Like it was like Dovi could take his time in the corners and, pull tighter lines, just, and relax, right? Like it seemed to be riding very relaxed the whole time. And then he'd catch Jorge on the straight and pass him into turn one. And it was perfect every lap. It was just like I knew that Jorge was going to fall back. I didn't think it was going to be the helmet incident, right? But I think that Jorge was pushing the front tire too much, trying to stay in front of Dovi, or trying to pass Dovi later in the lap and then stay in front of him. And I figured that he'd, get third or whatever, but of course he had to go one spot further back because someone else came through.
And I think that was like a really exciting thing to see Dovizioso not only competitive with one factory Yamaha, but both factory Yamahas. I mean, we're not talking about like he would pass him once and then they would repass him and then that's it. No, I mean, we're talking like absolute, kind of fisticuffs that Dovi was able to hold up on that Ducati. That was just really exciting to watch.
Yeah,
he was riding a lot more aggressive. That's the thing. He talked about how because the bike is normal and rides the way, he wasn't having to ride it so hard. So he had energy and constitution at the end of the race.
Yeah.
So now here's a guy who's used to having to struggle to maintain pace, at the end of the race, and now he's like, oh shit, here I am. I still got tire, I still got energy, and I've got a rocket ship strapped to this bike.
Yeah, a few people on Barf thought that he was going to peter off like normal, around like, say, lap 5 to 8. And the Pramac bikes totally did that, right? Like they were up there, they were charging hard with the other satellite bikes, and then they kind of fell back. but Dovi actually posted his fastest lap on the final lap of the race.
And then you only had to also look at Iannone. I mean, he wasn't getting dropped off. Maybe a few laps here and there, but he was. I mean, for crying out loud, the guy finished third. So, it's not to take anything away from Dovizioso, but it really was just. I'm just so glad to see that much red. I mean, that's my color. I love red, and in that way, I love Ducati doing that good this early on. So.
You didn't even buy the Ducati helmet though. You just got the Dovi one. Like, come on.
Like I said, I don't know the Ducati, and it looks too similar to my other red Swarmy helmet. I just want some variety, but you'll never know. I may someday own a Ducati. You'll never know.
It'll happen, I'm sure. Yeah, when did Iannone's best lap came on lap 8, and then he fell off a little bit. He did a 55.5. And then his final lap of the race was a 56 flat. And, he was a couple tenths up on Jorge, like, for the second half of the race. But Dovi actually did a 55.4 on the final lap of the race. So Dovi's experience, I'm sure, helped him in that situation and helped him.
Right, absolutely. I think Iannone had got his first podium. He was probably shitting bricks. Oh, my God, I'm up here. This bike is badass. I could actually do this.
Well, and his first podium was all Italians, and Rossi was up there with him. Like,
right.
Like, that guy
Let me ask you guys this. I mean, just not to be kind of a Debbie Downer, but the reality is that neither one of the factory Hondas were kind of in play that weekend for whatever their circumstances. So, what are you guys thinking as far as had it been kind of a normal order of play? Do you think that the Hondas would have been kind of like on their own class compared to Yamaha and Ducati, or would they have been in the mix just as well?
Well, I mean, Danny is the guy we can say, okay, it turns out he's got this possibly inoperable, career-threatening arm pump injury thing going on.
Yeah.
But you know what? Marquez is entirely his own fault because that's the way he rides. He rode off the track because he fucked up. No one cut him off and caused it. It wasn't like a Bautista first turn moment that fucked him up and he had to regain. And then, he's actually slowing himself down slightly by, again, running into Bautista. And, for me, I'm not asterixing any of that at all. Marquez's biggest problem when he has problems is always self-inflicted. Right. So, for me, that was a thing that does happen. Now, would he be there if Marquez didn't self-inflict and Danny was perfectly healthy? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. I can't wait to see the Honda versus the Ducati at the straight line speed track that is COTA.
Yeah, right. We're definitely going to get it next weekend. But, right. I mean, I'm surprised, though, because both Marquez and Danny, they weren't really able to match the pace that they seemed to have the whole weekend, right? Like Marquez especially, right, was up there the whole weekend, and yet he didn't post the fastest lap of the race. Like he did his fastest lap, like at lap 11, did a 55.6, like slower than Rossi, slower than Dovi, slower than Iannone, slower than Jorge. So
and there was lots of
because he had to go through like all that traffic, and by the time he got the clear track, he's already roasted his tires. So.
There's no way he roasted them in 11 laps. Like not.
Did he did he ride any harder going through traffic that Rossi and Dovizioso rode those last 5 laps?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
So I don't know if he roasted his tires or burned stuff up, but once he got clear track, he wasn't reeling guys in like Rossi did when Rossi broke free from the the mid pack and started catching those guys. He was up to his 6th, 7th, place not that long after running off the track. You know what I mean? There was a lot of time there.
Yeah, when did he? Let me look it up here. When Marquez actually made it through on everyone, which PDF to select?
I just think that it was Rossi's clearly been competitive at Qatar, so he was going to be there. Even 2013 when he came back, he's got 2 seconds and a first now since his return to Yamaha. And I for me, seeing Dovizioso go that, I think Dovizioso would have podiumed no matter what in that race. Maybe not, because maybe he wouldn't have been able to have to fight with Danny and Marquez, or maybe fighting with those guys would have got the better with him because he is kind of a crazy dude. I mean, that's his fucking nickname, for Christ's sakes. So,
Right.
But I still think Dovizioso is legitimately on the podium, and I think that Rossi probably wins that race. I don't think anything was stopping Rossi from winning that race.
Yeah, I agree. I would have put Rossi in first, Dovi in second, and if Marquez hadn't run off track, probably on the final step of the podium. Like, he actually made it past Danny by lap 11,
Right.
or lap 12. So he got up there pretty quick. He had half the race almost to catch up to the final group. But by that time,
Who were battling. It's not like this was 2010 where Stoner or Danny had checked out. The front four guys were battling and passing like crazy. They weren't, just in a big train running time trials. So it wasn't like he had, no space between him and the top four and they were too stretched out. Those guys were busy nearly bump passing each other half the time.
yeah, and I mean, and they were all running the same times, like, which is nuts. Like, Marquez was legitimately not going fast enough to get them, even though they were still battling. Like, if they had been nice to each other, they would have pulled away instead of the gap being about the same. So,
right. If they had their 2009 gentleman agreement that Danny and Jorge and Casey like to have.
yeah, the end of MotoGP agreement.
Right. Exactly.
Oh man, but I'm still shocked that the pace that Marquez had all weekend was kind of thwarted by the fact that he ran off track in the first lap. Like, whatever the circumstances, he just was not able to replicate. And it's not like track conditions were as best they've ever been around Qatar. It can't be that. Like, they just must have missed something. Like, they did the exact opposite of Rossi. Rossi screwed up qualifying by trying to qualify in the medium front tire, and then he put the hard on for the race, and the hard just was exactly what he needed. And Marquez must have done something completely different. And even Danny was saying that his arm pump issue kind of came on in the second half of the race, but his lap times don't really show that. Like, he did his fastest lap on lap 2, and then he did another 55 on lap 11 battling with Marquez. And then after that, he was only, he was in the 56s, but he had 56s before that as well. So, I mean, it's amazing that the guy was able to finish where he did with one arm tied behind his back, like Moto Matters said,
Right.
But it's just, it's crazy. Like, he just didn't have the pace. Like, I said in the Barf thread, around qualifying or something, that Danny was back, that he finally got that one lap pace back, and he'd probably push hard from the beginning, but it didn't happen. His first lap was terrible. His second lap was his fastest and not great, and he never went anywhere else. So what's up with that? I don't know.
Well, apparently no doctors know what's up with that either.
Yeah. Yeah, he found another one, right? He's going to the same doctor that did Julian Simon and Nicky Hayden recently. And unlike his previous doctor, this new doctor is going to do a super invasive surgery and is going to remove some tissue to attempt to free up some space in there. And but we're going to see, right?
Not for 2 rounds, because they're going to send out Hero to Coda and Argentina.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another talking point, right? Like, everyone's super disappointed, but at the same time, it can't really get any better.
Nah, I mean, the thing is, you just hear wild card, and you're like, oh my god, put Johnny Ray on it, it'd be totally sweet. Even though, even if you put Stoner on the thing tomorrow, he's not gonna do what, he's not gonna win.
Hey.
I just mean it's the realities of team gelling, setting, actual race time on the bike. It's just too much. You know what I mean? I mean, it'd be cool to see Stoner on it for sure. He won't, because it'd be a bigger media circus than it ever had been if he returned.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
He would vomit in the back again.
Right.
But no,
right.
Dennis, you bought a Dovey helmet. You can't defend Moner so hard anymore.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's like the aliens are the aliens for a reason. It was like, like Michael Schumacher coming back in Formula One. Everyone in the beginning thought that he was going to like clean sweep the whole deal and get Mercedes to the front, but it didn't happen, right? Like if Stoner came back tomorrow, he would lose to the aliens and the Ducatis, like handily. Like you put him on the Repsol bike, he would still lose to the majority of them every single race until he got back in the swing of things. And then he'd hate it and bitch and complain and, retire again.
I'm going to have to edit out that whole clip, right?
The whole
The
whole point is...
Oh, man. But,
but that brings you to a point. It's talking about, Stoner retired. He's two-time world champion. He's one of the best ever. Danny's looking down the face of retirement, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, here's Rossi. Here's Methuselah-ass Rossi still winning races. How many of his rivals is he going to outlast? I mean, legitimately, every single one he is outlasting, and Biaggi was his rival, and then Gibernau, and then they basically groomed Danny from the ground up, and built him and software programmed him to be the Rossi beater. Now he might outlast him. He outlasted Stoner. Lorenzo has made more than one comment recently, the past year or two, that maybe he's going to wrap it up in a couple of years. I mean, is this guy going to outlast Marquez? Is he going to be racing Marquez's younger brother, too?
Well, I haven't heard a Pedrobot joke in like 3 or 4 years. That was awesome. but I mean, he definitely will outlast Danny. Like, I can't see, I'm wondering if Danny is actually going to retire at the end of this year. Like, even if he comes back with the injury, like, fixed, the last time he got it fixed, it only lasted for, like, a month or two. So if he, takes the next 6 weeks off and then has, like, 3 or 4 months, that puts him at the end of the season. And what does he do? Like, does he go into the off season thinking, like, oh, come Qatar again, my forearm will be, swollen and useless? Like, I think he'd rather retire than put himself through this exact same situation that he's in right now.
I kind of feel, I like Danny a lot. He gets some hate, but I actually like him a lot. But part of me thinks, like, dude, he's been hurt so many times. He does so many surgeries. What the hell is he going to feel like when he's 50? Maybe time to just, finish out your season, whatever it is, hang up the gloves and be like, I have a whole... 2/3 of my life ahead of me. Do I really need to just feel like a hobbled old man when I'm in my late 30s?
Yeah, I mean, the only pro racer that has aged well ever is Rossi.
Right.
Like all those other guys, the second they like get off the bike, they age 10 years in 2 or 3. Like it's terrible. And I'm sure
just an observation right now. As far as Rossi outlasting his rivals, is that in his current crop of rivals, being Lorenzo, Pedrosa, and I'm going to count Stoner as well, is that if Pedrosa was to retire at the end of the season, which would be a real shame because, the guy is still clearly fast. There's no doubt about it. But, if he does retire, that's 2 of Rossi's rivals that had to kind of basically call it quits for whatever reason when they're more or less still like really very competitive,
I think part of it is, when Rossi came in, it changed the game when guys started training harder and they basically knew they had to take that next level to beat him. I mean, Honda even basically admitted that at one point.
Well, he wasn't training.
Guys like Casey Stoner and Danny Pedrosa have been running the hardcore straight edge rider life their whole life. This isn't like Rossi getting drunk after winning races and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, the style of how these guys were raised and the pedigree of how they were brought up.
Very focused.
So strict, so corporate, so manufactured that I think there's a burnout aspect to it that eventually hits
Absolutely.
These guys.
I agree.
Yeah,
whereas, like, I'm pretty sure Rossi smoked a bowl that night. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
and Rossi's got like a hippie dad who sleeps in the back of his car, and some weird mom who lives in a commune in Italy and shit. And he rolls around with his best friend all day. Like, these other guys are like Lorenzo, is like a chiseled, constantly trying to refine everything. He's so fucking serious all the time. And, like, I swear to God, Rossi's high during the press conferences.
So yeah, I mean, Jorge, I thought Jorge was going to retire first, actually, of between him and Danny. Like Stoner doesn't even count, but the injury thing has obviously made Danny like a little bit closer to the whole deal. But I fully expect Rossi to outlast Jorge as well. Like I mean, even if they renew at the end of, like, Rossi's kind of saying, I can race till 40, which means he tacks on 2017 and 2018. And who knows if Jorge is going to renew as well. But is Marquez doing the exact same thing that Danny and Jorge are doing, of, like, you know, the we have to train as hard as possible, and this is
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure he's training, but I think I just kind of get the feeling that he also does it for the mere enjoyment of it. Like, there's more to him than just like that straight edge focus, it seems to me.
Well, you know, and Marquez got, like, not that everyone has a big injury, but Marquez got a pretty big injury that might change certain people's aspects on when he hurt his head and his eye. He was seeing double vision when he looked up, and he was legitimately a career-threatening injury. He got that done when he was basically still a teenager. You know what I mean? Like, he is too stupid to even know that that was a thing that was happening. So part of me thinks, like, get that out of the way early, maintain your health, and he could last a real long time because that same kind of happy-go-lucky attitude. It's still a different era, though, and I still feel like Rossi's a harken back to the old days, like, you know, where guys smoked and drank and got in fights afterwards and stuff like that. I mean, he's not a fighter, but you know what I mean.
Well, he had that fight on that stairwell with
yeah, that's true. Right.
Who was that? Was that Gibran?
That was with Biaggi.
Biaggi. Oh,
Biaggi.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Yes.
I have a question for you right now. I don't know if you've ever thought this before. I kind of want to think that you have, but I mean, the man just defies a lot of things. So I want to put you on the spot. What do you think will make Rossi stop?
I actually make him stop.
Yes.
If he gets old enough that he can't have a factory ride. I think he will. If 3-4 years from now, Yamaha's like, all right, dude, you were the greatest ever, but at some point we have to look forward. You know, if he can no longer ride on a factory bike, then he will stop. I mean,
do you think Yamaha will do that?
Although I think that he did say that when he rode for Ducati and he was going to go back to Yamaha, if he couldn't get the Yamaha ride, he was going to retire before he rode for Ducati again. So I think for him to retire, he needs to have the access to a bike that he knows can't win.
Well, but I mean, do you think he's going to be pushed by Yamaha? Like, literally, like, hey, we need to hire some younger riders so that we don't
No, because I think he's going to win the title this year.
Well, okay, Rob, do you think
he's on pace for 18 wins?
Okay, well, Rob, I got a question for you. Do you, because you asked that question, do you think Yamaha will effectively make that same mistake again? Because they did that kind of sort of with Lorenzo.
Not as bad as Ducati with Stoner, right? I think that Yamaha will be happy with having a new rider in the other seat and Rossi bringing in the sponsorship and the money.
Right, which I think is what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, it's an interesting point, though. That'll happen if say Jorge doesn't re-sign at the end of 2016 when his contract is up, right? Like, maybe he takes a Honda seat, or, you know, he retires. If he doesn't re-sign, then Yamaha will totally do that. And Rossi will re-sign. But at the end of 2018, are they gonna let Rossi re-sign for 2 more years? So he'll be 41 and 42.
It would be so funny if Rossi outlasts Yamaha in MotoGP.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, one of the things that might play into his longevity is if Ducati really is back, and let's say that they have a pretty solid year and a bunch more podiums, they become a legitimate possibility for other factory riders, top riders, which keeps more seats open at Yamaha. Suddenly, if not everyone's trying to, because basically everyone knew that Pedrosa's going to ride for Repsol Honda till he retires.
Right.
Yeah.
And no one's going to to Ducati. I'm talking about 2010, 11, 12. No one's going to Ducati. So basically, all the top riders were fighting for 2 seats that Rossi basically kind of got into because he's super famous. Now he totally backed it up. But now with Ducati being pretty good and Pedrosa possibly retiring, it opens up more seats, which opens up his ability to stay on a top team.
Right.
Yeah, because now he's one of 6 instead of one of 4.
Right, and even less because, like I said, I think it's guaranteed Pedrosa was never going to ride for anyone but Repsol, and he had that seat penciled in guaranteed till he retired.
Yeah.
So really it was one of 3 open seats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, well, and it's good for GP, right? Like the more competitive seats we have, the better the racing is going to be at the front of the grid. And
a competitive Rossi is good for GP. I know it sounds cliche and shitty and Rossi fanboy-esque. I mean, you can look at the BARF. There's guys who've never posting in there. And you see the comments on Moto Matters and on GP1's threads, they're twice as long as normal.
Yeah, and there are threads in general now instead of just in the Couch Racer section.
Right.
Yeah, freaking it's going to be very sad when his godliness on a motorcycle is no longer racing. Like, I hope that he's able to build the Moto3 team into something considerably more so that we can keep his influence in the paddock. But
right.
at the same time, I mean, if he's not on the bike, how many less Italians are going to watch? Like, I don't even know.
Well, yeah, the difference in ticket costs or ticket sales between 2013, 2014, with him at the Italian circuits was huge. They were resurging back. I mean, the amount of ticket sales was massive. People were there again. He had kind of a lull there for a couple of years when he wasn't doing that good, even at Mugello.
Yeah, and then he on the podium at Misano, right? And that was the resurgence, like the whole thing right there.
Now he won Misano.
Oh, that's right. He was on the podium at Mugello then.
He won Mugello too, bro.
Oh, God. I'm sucking today.
Yeah, last year, dude, last year was legit for him. He won a handful of races and was on the podium fucking constantly. Pull it up, man. I'm pulling it up right now. Now I have to actually.
No, I'm gonna beat you to it. No, he didn't. No, he was on the podium at Mugello and he won the
Yes.
Because
right.
and Jorge were battling it out and there was the whole like, oh, Marquez could draft around Jorge. He's got a big horsepower advantage and really.
Right, and then he won at Australia. Right.
Yes, exactly. There we go. So, okay, you've got him for the title. I'm gonna put him.
I don't really have him for the title. No? I still think Marquez is gonna win the title.
Okay, well,
wait. What are you guys thinking of Lorenzo for the rest of the season? I mean, as far as what happened in round 1, it was just a visor thing. I mean, who knows?
I don't think it was just a visor thing. I think just like last year, I think Lorenzo's on a downslope personally.
Yeah, I
do think so.
I think Rossi and Lorenzo are going to go toe to toe the whole time, and them doing that is going to let Marquez win it.
I do think the new rules with the new fuel limits hurt Lorenzo more than everyone else.
Yeah, and Yamaha's recovered quite a bit in that regard. Like, they've made the bike considerably better to ride. Like Jorge scored more points than anyone for the second half of the season last year. Like,
by the way, I forgot to completely, and we missed something huge when it comes to will Raj turn and when is. It all depends on how Michelin's are.
Oh. Yeah, but they're going to be a Rossi tire, right? Like, they're just going.
That's what I'm saying, dude. They're going to give him overnight specials again.
At least for a little bit. Oh man, yeah, that'll be the rule change is going to have a dramatic effect on everyone's career. I mean, maybe Jorge will turn into a moaner and he'll be like, "I hate this spec software. I'm retiring."
Right.
It could happen. But as long as Rossi has Marquez to race with and they're both enjoying themselves, Rossi will stay in the championship. Like, that's the thing. Everyone like a Rossi that's enjoying himself and fighting is gonna keep racing and it's gonna keep MotoGP awesome and popular and it's gonna be amazing. But so unfortunately Coda's next, and unfortunately for
unfortunately, I know, for reals.
For Rossi, unfortunately Coda's next. Like, his best finish is 6th. Last year he had tire problems. What's gonna happen? Is there any chance of a Yamaha even on the podium?
I have no idea. I think it's going to be Marquez Dovizioso battle. But I will show you how good Rossi's season could be if he's able to improve upon those kind of pretty shitty results. If he shows up and gets fourth or third, or he's on the podium, that doesn't bode well for some of the other guys.
Yeah, that's true. If he scores solid points, that'll kind of start his championship off in the right way.
It's just not a track that bodes well for battles, which is where Rossi kind of shines. And where he really gets that extra pace because he really likes doing it.
Yeah.
I legitimately am excited for Coda, which I'm not normally, just to see what Dovizioso can do.
Well, he was on the podium last year.
Right, a dry, legitimate podium.
But he
second place.
He was third, and he was.
Was it third? Okay.
He was 21 seconds back of Marquez.
Right.
So
but
last year was not a close race.
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't lend itself to good racing, but who knows? I mean, the bike is this much better because what was he at Qatar last year?
It was probably pretty bad.
Yeah, it was like 7th or something.
He got 5th, and he was 12 seconds back.
Right.
But he had a forward Yamaha in front of him. So there didn't. Yeah, I mean the bike is considerably better. He'll probably gain quite a bit of time through the gnarly S section just from having a bike that turns. And then Ducati last year didn't really have their motor yet, right? Like they got the motor at Indy, and the motor is better now. So yeah, I could see Dovi having at least a second a lap on last year's bike, and that'll put him right at the front. So yeah, so are we going Ducati win for Coda?
I'm putting my hat in a Ducati win. I'm hoping. I'm dreaming.
Wait. Let's make this official and wrap up the episode on this one. Give me your forecast. Let's start with you, Rob. What are you forecasting for the finish in Coda?
I think it's still going to be Marquez. I think he's going to do the three-peat. And I'm going to put Ducati second and Ducati third.
Wow.
I am going Dovizioso, Marquez, Iannone, Rossi, Cal for a top 5.
Cal ahead of Jorge.
Yes, I think Jorge is going to have a bad race, and I think I just have this weird feeling that Jorge is on his downslope.
I wonder.
Wait a minute. Somebody remind me. How did Jorge do in Coda 2 years ago when they first got there? Because I know Marquez has been winning the last 2 rounds in Coda, but how did? Because Lorenzo was out of it last year. But how was it the first time out?
He got third.
He got third.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Spanish podium.
All right. Huh.
He was 3 1/4 seconds back, so not too bad. But Danny was right on Marquez. Yeah, and then obviously last year was his big snafu, and he was 49 seconds back. But only 4 seconds behind Rossi with his massive tire problem. So I hope that Bridgestone has that figured out, because we need to have some solid racing.
It's interesting that neither one of you chose a Rossi win at Coda.
I think a Rossi win at Coda. If Rossi wins at Coda, I'm turning these podcasts into video podcasts, and I'm going to be naked. I simply don't think the bike has the pace that track layout requires to win compared to the other two.
Yeah, there's no way that he can make up enough time in the S's to make up for that drive down the straightaway that he'll be missing. And they're going to be better on the brakes into turn 1, which will be awesome. And off the
seamless downshifting will help. But I think that a podium is possible, but I don't think a win. I think a podium is possible if everything comes together. But I wouldn't be surprised if Rossi's off the podium and both Ducatis are still on the podium this race.
Yeah. And wait, so if Dovi wins it, he could be leading the championship.
If Dovi wins, and yeah, for sure.
I mean, wait, if Dovi gets second and Rossi's like 4th or 5th or something, he could still be leading the championship.
Progressive points is going to keep him. I think it's very possible. That's a good point. That Dovi is leading the championship at the end of that round. In fact, if you include Argentina, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, no. Tell you what. Let's do this. Let's make this promise to whatever listeners we have that if Dovizioso wins at Coda, I will do the next podcast episode wearing the helmet the whole time.
Nice.
We'll have to get you a
I'll
mic.
just try to yell. Yeah.
And Kevin's gonna be naked.
That's my offering.
Oh,
So yeah, shall we wrap it up on that note then?
yeah, I think we're good. That's pretty solid.
Well, then just for the next episode, this weekend, which is going to be the April 4th and 5th, is the first round of British Superbikes for whoever's following. But round 2 of MotoGP and also round 3 of World Superbikes is going to be the following week, which is the week of April 10, 11, 12. Also going to be the first round for our National Series Moto America. So probably are going to have even more to talk about in the next episode after, that race weekend.
Yeah,
And watch British Superbikes because they don't know it's not a motocross race.
You guys better watch the American the Moto America races because I want someone to actually talk with.
Oh, we got one more thing before we quit. Casey Stoner's glorious return to racing.
I can't wait.
What? But Suzuka's not for a while, right?
No, but they announced it. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really thinking much of it as far as what's going to happen after that. Like, is he really going to come back? It's just that for me, it's like that's the closest to me seeing arguably my favorite rider riding a bona fide superbike. I mean, I know it's not a superbike, but that's the closest I'll see him on a superbike. Which you both know I love superbikes. So
there was an interview with him. He legitimately said that the superbikes are easier to ride and he couldn't imagine doing an 8-hour race on a GP bike. And for me, that kind of felt like a slap, like a backhanded sort of deal with GP. I'm just like, God, come on.
Someone should ask him if it's faster than a CRT bike.
But it doesn't have to take Stoner to kind of mention. I mean, if we just kind of harken back to when Simoncelli did his wildcard in World Superbikes that one time, I mean, he podiumed on that. Yeah, of course it is an Aprilia, but it is still a superbike.
He would have destroyed them if he had any time on that bike. That's how we know the talent level is,
Right.
It is.
But yeah, absolutely right, Kevin. Casey Stoner was announced to be racing at Suzuka 8 Hours with also Michael van der Mark was also confirmed, which is going to be his second year on that circuit. So, it's not until July, but I can't wait for it.
Who's their other teammate? Are they with Kiyonari?
No, I forgot. It was a Japanese rider, but I can't remember his name, so I'm sorry about that.
It's just pretty cool that he did make his way back. I'll definitely watch, I'm not going to watch the whole 8 hours, but it is pretty cool that he made his way back, and maybe he'll like a superbike and there's a place for him riding somewhere else where the media circus doesn't affect him so much and he can just relax and do his thing.
Yeah, and Superbikes races in Phillip Island, so yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Their teammate is Takahashi.
Nice.
Takumi Takahashi. That's the same Takahashi, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's not what I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, it says fellow HRC test rider Takumi Takahashi.
Well, we'll just have to see how that unfolds. But like I said earlier, the next episode of this podcast will cover the triple header weekend of April 10, 11, 12. So until then, we'll talk to you then.
Go Rozzy.
Later.